Hi, and welcome to another episode of the WVD Community podcast. My name is Stefan Dingemanse, and today I will host this episode together with McLoughlin and Köhler. We know you haven't heard from us for the last couple of weeks. Due to COVID, we had some personal stuff we had to take care of. But today, we are ready for a brand new episode of our WVD Community podcast. Hi guys, how are you doing?
Pretty good, thank you. And how are you
Good.
doing?
Good. Hello.
So, for today's episode, we invited Travis Roberts, who is going to join us from Minnesota. Hi Travis, how are
Hi.
you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here. I've listened to your podcast of I think all of them so far, and I'm really excited to be part of this.
Well, it's very nice to have you in our show, Travis. So, for the people who don't know Travis Roberts, aka Ciraltos, I will let Travis introduce himself.
Sure. So I'm a cloud consultant for RBA Consulting, and I also do YouTube videos, and I run a blog called Ciraltos, and I recently published Windows Virtual Desktop Zero to Hero course on Udemy.com.
Perfect, great. Yeah, we heard about your Udemy course, Travis. Can you tell us a little bit more? For whom is this course? Is it really a beginner's guide? For whom is it intended?
Yeah, it's really meant for somebody with little or no Windows Virtual Desktop experience, but maybe some Azure. There's a lot of foundational stuff that would be helpful to know going into it, but really I did a lot of videos on Windows Virtual Desktop on YouTube, and I kind of saw through the video analytics and some of my website analytics the same information. People are kind of asking some really basic questions. So I wanted to put that information that I published on YouTube along with some new stuff into a format that's more structured for people to learn Windows Virtual Desktop.
I have to say, I like your videos a lot.
Oh, thank
very,
you.
Very, very impressive. Especially because you've been consistent, right? I think you publish one every week. Is that right?
Well, I try to, and that is tough. I haven't been over the last couple months, in part because of this course. There's a finite amount of time, and the course took up a lot of it. So I tried to put some out while I did that, and then my family and I, due to the pandemic and everybody working remotely, we took a month and went to a vacation property in the southern U.S. for about a month. That ate up a little bit more time too, but I should be back at it starting at the beginning of the year.
Awesome. Just out of interest, how long does it take you to create one of those videos? Because it looks very professional, very slick.
Thanks. Well, go back to some of my earlier stuff. It's been a lot of trial and error. And I like to leave those out there because it shows that you don't just jump in and start as an expert. It takes some building. It kind of depends. I've got a flow down where I can kind of just come up with a script in my head, kind of understand the whole way I got into it is I can't remember stuff. So I started blogging as a way to keep notes and make them public. And then I found that I liked the video format a little bit better. I just found it more comfortable, easier to work with. And also I kind of envisioned the shift of people going from the blogs and written to video training. So that got me started with YouTube, publishing my stuff out there. And then over the years, I've been able to kind of refine it, get the equipment, and just have it in place so I don't have to set up and take down. So, but yeah, the last series I did was 3 videos on Image Builder, and that was about a 2-week total. Kind of funny, I went to record it over a weekend, and Image Builder is in preview. So I had all the steps, and I've done dry runs. I know all the commands work. Everything should just go. And this was like a Friday night, or maybe a Saturday morning. I went to record it, and the command didn't work. And I did it again. The command didn't work. And I'm like, it was like 2 or 3 hours. I know I'm doing this right, and I know it worked before. And sure enough, there was an issue with one of the templates or something that was pushed out. And by Monday morning, it was working again. So
Finally, it worked out.
That's
A pretty good video series, I have to say. I've watched it multiple times because it helped me also to get started with it. So really great video series. Or in general, Travis, what you're doing, we're really liking your videos.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I did, in addition to this Udemy, before I did the Udemy course, I was contacted by Cloud Guru, and I did an online training course for them on Azure AD hybrid user identities, so using like AD Connect. Unfortunately, due to their merger, they kind of streamlined their catalog, and my course is not available anymore. So that's, I wanted to do a course on Windows Virtual Desktop, but I wanted to do it in a way that I could also produce YouTube content on the same subject. And that's why I went with Udemy, because that's a self-published. So if I put a video out on, like I did recently on, with the Windows Virtual Desktop Analytics, that's in preview I think it went preview last week. There's no competition. It's only competition with myself.
So the Cloud Gurus course, it was about Active Directory, AD Connect, Azure AD. What I saw today is one of your videos, like the best viewed video, is about that topic.
Which one was it?
The video about the Active Directory, Azure Active Directory, and AAD Connect. I guess you'll get like 70,000 views?
Wow. I can't remember exactly. I can take a look real quick. You know, that is a downside, is sometimes I have to go back and watch my own videos.
And you forgot you
definitely happens.
Yeah, because you got like, was it 8.6 thousand subscribers?
I think it was 79,000.
79,000. Wow. That's
Wow.
very, very impressive. Yeah, I was reading up apparently on YouTube, when you get to a million subscribers, they give you like a trophy.
So what I personally really like is when like Microsoft is releasing a new feature or something in public preview, there are a couple of guys who are jumping straight onto it, sharing everything they could find about that subject and share it with the world. And as we just discussed, like you could write a blog post, but in my opinion, those videos are way better to get that information and to get you started. And you can just pause, you can click, you can walk through it. So, well,
yeah, and I try to really make sure that, like, I try to imagine somebody who, you know, after you go through and you kind of learn it, it's easy to overlook little details, but I try to make sure to capture those along the way too. I did look, and yes, that the video that you're referring to is the difference between Windows Active Directory, Azure Active Directory, and Azure Active Directory domain services. And that has been one I remember years ago having to explain it multiple times to different managers and C-level, because, you know, well, if we have Azure AD, why do we need Windows AD? And then going over the whole, what's the difference and what role each of those play is pretty important. Yeah, I've got a lot of comments on that.
yeah,
It is confusing that all three have Active Directory in the name, but they do something. I guess they're both all directory services.
I agree. I fell into that trap when I first got involved with WVD as well, because especially when Microsoft make it even more confusing that you need to have two. So you said, oh yeah, you need to have like, so you sat there thinking, do we need Azure AD, or do we need Azure Active Directory, or do we need Azure Active Domain Services? And yeah, it took me a good few months to get my head around what the difference is between them all and which is applicable to deploying environments, right?
Oh, you should have watched the video from.
Or I should have watched Travis's video. That'll explain things more simply.
Yeah.
And hopefully things when we go to native Azure AD eventually, that will all
right. Yeah, I've heard that, and you know, I envision, I can see why companies want to eliminate the Windows AD from that. But I also see envision a lot of organizations who also have third-party services that require Windows AD. So at that point, you're going to have it anyway.
Yeah, I think it's more of, if I'm setting up a brand new company today, I think what a lot of people complain about is, for a small environment, if they want to use WVD, why should I have to build some domain controllers? I mean, that's the primary use case, right? Domain controllers are going to be around for a long, long time yet. I mean, they're never going to go away completely, because, as you said, there's some applications out there which rely on them to be there. But I think having the ability to go pure native as your AD is certainly going to help a lot of scenarios and customers.
Yeah,
That's my view of it anyway.
Definitely.
It's nice to have the option.
Sorry to interrupt. I would have another question, Travis. When I see your YouTube channel, especially, I see that from the topics you have, you are very diverse from the technology. How did it all started with WVD? What was the reason that you started with WVD videos?
Well, that was actually my beginning with Azure. So I worked at a company. I was at a company. I was a manager of the infrastructure group, but hands-on. And we ended up planning to move off from Exchange to O365. But I was in charge of getting AD Connect in place and getting the identities synced. And so that kind of put me into the Azure realm. And then later on, we had an event. It's a U.S. football has a Super Bowl, and the event was in downtown Minneapolis that year, and we wanted to be able to scale out RDS on demand in case something happened where our employees couldn't get to downtown Minneapolis that week. So I started looking at Azure for RDS and seeing what a good fit it was, because you could scale out those session hosts. And that started getting me into application gateways and desired state configuration. I started learning templates on how to deploy it, Azure automation to shut down these VMs when they're not in use. And it was like really exciting. There was a lot to learn with that. And around I think it was 2017, I went to Ignite and I was able to talk to somebody. They just announced Windows Virtual Desktop. And as I talked to them, I was able to, I could see what a significant thing this is going to be, because at that point, they didn't announce Windows 10 multi-user yet. But to be able to get rid of the session host and or not the session host, but the connection brokers, the RD Gateway, RD Web, all that part from an RDS employment was huge. So that really, really spurred my interest. And then once that was announced and once Windows 10 came out, as soon as it went to a public preview, I had other videos going, so I just incorporated that in, and that kept my interest going.
Perfect.
But yeah, it's kind of the origin of my experience with Azure is Windows Virtual Desktop and RDS.
Perfect. That's very interesting. We are always interested to hear from people how they get to Windows Virtual Desktop especially, and it's very interesting story. That leads me directly to my second question, because I saw that you also have an auto-scaling solution to propose. You know that I'm also very interested in it. Maybe you can talk a little bit about it. Yeah,
sure. That came out because it was when the fall 2019 that version, the first version came out, I just saw the need for being able to scale up and scale down. The solution that Microsoft provided at the time, I could tell it was a version that they had for RDS that looked like they modified it to fit, because it still had to run on a server, which I wasn't too crazy about. So I was looking at that, trying to figure out how can I make them less complicated to run. And it occurred to me that if you're trying to shut down virtual machines when they're not in use, you're trying to save money. And breadth first load balancing is not a good way to go if you're trying to save money. So if we could just say it has to be depth first, and the machines have to be scaled correctly in order to handle that load, then we could just count how many users are on each and how much spare capacity you want, and turn them off and on as needed. So I did that, and that was with, I had to use Azure Automation on that, because the older RDS commands did not run on Windows or PowerShell 7 or 6 at the time, I think. So I had to create an Azure Automation run book that would start and shut them down. But Azure Automation has a reoccurrence schedule, the minimum reoccurrence is 1 hour, which doesn't work. So then I had to go over to Azure Functions and create a function that would kick off a webhook every 5 minutes. So there's like these two different services. So when the spring version, the more recent, the ARM version, the Windows Virtual Desktop ARM came out, I was able to put everything into Azure Functions and make it work there. And then I had some people from the community reach out with different ideas and ways to change it and make it better. So I was able to update it along the way.
Perfect.
I reckon you two could probably geek out all night on auto scaling stuff, right?
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of solutions and it's great. I mean, this is just one if it works. I know somebody figured out that if you set the number to 0, I think for after hours, it'll shut them all down. I didn't even plan on that working, but so you can shut them all down after hours. The interesting thing about auto scaling though, I stumbled on this. Auto scaling is great if you need to do that, but if you're trying to save money, also look at reserved instances, because you could buy a 3-year reserved instance and it knocks it down takes off 62% of the price. So now you're paying less than half.
Every time I have that conversation with a customer now, they always say, well, that's fine, but the problem is reserved instance, you have to be tied in for that 3-year period, right? So you're essentially entering a contract and they don't want to do that.
Right.
That's the problem.
And that makes sense too. Yeah. Yeah. It's an option if somebody needs it. For sure.
Yeah. Cause I think I did some working outs for a presentation, and there's a tipping point where sort of reserved instances is cheaper than pay as you go. I think it's when you go over like 230 hours or something like that, it makes it's cheaper to go down the reserved instances route. Right. But I mean, are Microsoft still releasing improvements to their scaling solutions? You know,
I've heard of that.
Yeah, but I've not seen anything on the roadmap or anything.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything more than what you've covered already.
Yeah,
I've heard it from here, so
I can already share with you. I did a little bit of research what's coming in December, and what I see on the roadmap is that the auto starting functionality will be released in public preview at least this month, which means it's not a really auto scaling solution. I would call it, or I prefer to call it like an auto starting solution. But maybe you can do it with an automation account to just shut down the machines you need and just start them via that solution if the first user connects to that machine. We will see. We'll definitely talk about it in another podcast episode as well, I assume.
Yeah, because it'd be nice to have something in there similar to what, say, Citrix does, where you can, it's sort of more easy and manageable from the GUI, where you can just say, right, I want VMs to start up it. Because obviously, I mean, probably leads on to one thing which I was going to sort of mention and talk about, is the best WVD environments that I see out there are the ones who have been sort of deployed by people with a very strong background in Azure. Because I don't know what you guys see, but at the moment I see two types of people doing WVD. It's the kind of EUC folks who have come in and started to sort of look at WVD, who sort of do a few basic deployments, stuff like that. And then obviously you've got the hardcore Azure guys who come in and then do all the DevOps and stuff like that. Do you guys see something similar?
I can just confirm from our company as a services company, we have exactly the same. The EUC guys are totally crazy about Windows Virtual Desktop and what you can achieve with it. And on the other hand, you have Azure guys or Azure native guys like me in this example, because I'm not coming, let's say, from the EUC space, that are totally crazy about it as well. So the good thing is that you combine infrastructure-related people with those with the end-user computing experience. And I think this brings the most value in collaboration within those teams as well. And I think at the beginning of the year, we talked about Microsoft Teams as the rescue solution for companies, especially here in Europe, it was like that. But I think Teams was just the beginning. When we speak about collaboration and computing power, we need that definitely to have a look at Windows Virtual Desktop as well. How do you see it, Travis, in the US?
I think in the US, from what I've seen, from what I've observed, there seems to be a lot more momentum in Europe. I mean, there's definitely a strong foothold now with Citrix and like VMware. So Windows Virtual Desktop is trying to compete or come in against that. And I think there's a lot of VMware and Citrix administrators who maybe are a little bit reluctant, but I think as people start to test it out and see and look at the value proposition and the price comparison, I think we're going to see more momentum along that lines for sure.
Yeah, totally agree. So, Travis, like the last year, the reason why WVD became so popular is, well, I think of course the pandemic, the COVID-19 situation, and Microsoft invested a lot in adding new features to the platform. What are your top 3 features of WVD, which are on the roadmap, in public preview, or already in production?
Well, I think this is an easy one, but I like the spring update.
Yeah, okay,
really,
of course, yeah.
You know, I think that goes without saying, but it definitely that opened the door, I think, for a lot of more people. I remember one person commented, you know, if it's not integrated into the portal, it's not an enterprise solution for them. That's, you know, a lot of people want that. And I really like interacting with the portal first. Sometimes that just helps me put it in a mental space before I go into PowerShell or the command line. The other thing that I thought was really significant is the SMB access for Azure files. Yep. For storing profiles.
And now in combination with the AD authentication.
Yeah, exactly. That helps a lot because that cuts down on the infrastructure required for an implementation. I also like what NetApp did with their solution, getting NetApp files out there. That's a pretty interesting product. And I think if you're looking at a lot of IOPS or a lot of storage, especially if you're a NetApp shop already, it makes sense to look at that. I wanted to do some videos on it, but the time I looked, the price per gig wasn't bad, but I think there was a terabyte or intro, and it was
it's a minimum of 4. It's a minimum of 4 terabytes, I think. Yeah. So, but for a demo or for yourself, you can just easily spin up a NetApp files and play around with it and just remove it. I think Neil did the same.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, but I had
so you don't.
So I spun it up, and then I looked at my Azure bill. I only had it running for like 2 or 3 days, and it's like it was the top most expensive resource, so I deleted it.
Well, Azure Files is already a big competitor with Azure NetApp Files because they reduced the price of Azure Files, more IOPS, and now they also got the SMB multipath in preview.
Yeah, and they've introduced the tiering as well, so you can now do the tiering, I believe, so sort of hot cold storage. So but Travis, if you want to talk about sort of NetApp VDS, I know someone you can talk to about that.
Okay, yeah, I'm sure.
but not in this show.
Well, I was surprised because I was a NetApp customer at a place, and I can't remember where I heard it, but you know, most other products, when you go into Azure, it's like a virtual appliance backed by Azure storage. So hearing that it's actually NetApps that they're putting into these data centers, and you're getting a real NetApp, is pretty impressive.
Yeah, definitely.
So do you do in your sort of day-to-day job? Do you do WVD or do you do like other stuff as well, like Azure? Are you Azure
other
guy?
stuff? I do. Yeah, I pretty general Azure stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. The you know, talking about storage, several years ago, I worked for a company called Compellent. They were one of the first data storage platforms that had SSDs, and they ended up being purchased by Dell. But I worked with them as a Citrix pre-sale. That's kind of the extent of my Citrix experience. But one of the things I was doing is using Login VSI to generate a workload to see what would happen when we started 1,000 Citrix VMs at the same time to generate that boot storm. And that's another product that I've been able to work with off and on is Login VSI. I got some trials of that, and it's pretty interesting to see the IOP performance. And then one of the things with going into FS Logics, and this is something that I went over in my course, I made sure to cover it, is when you're writing profile information on a laptop that you're sitting at, all that data is going directly to a hard drive or an SSD drive. When you're using FS Logics and it's sitting on an SMB share someplace else, that IOP is going, over a driver, over SMB share, transversing a network before it hits the disk and then writes. So understanding to make sure that stuff is close together. You don't want to put your FS Logic in a different region or your shares. Make sure that you're looking at not just the IOPS on the computer, but also on that share as well.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Login VSI, and I think Neil and also we play with it for the Microsoft Meets Community event.
I try to, every deployment that I do, especially if it's a big deployment, I try to get them to use it if they can, because it gives you so much information. So
yeah, it's a great tool.
Definitely.
Perfect.
Definitely. So what's your favorite upcoming feature of WVD then, Travis? What are you looking forward to in 2021?
App attach. So that's something that I'm an infrastructure person. So the closer you get to the end user, the desktop, the applications, my knowledge, it starts to wane a little bit. But that's something that I haven't had a lot of exposure to, but I just got Ryan Megan. He just put out a book.
Yeah.
And I started reading that last night. So I'm pretty excited to get
that was yesterday, wasn't
some
it?
information.
Yeah, it has been released already. Yeah.
Yeah. So get more of a background on that, because that is definitely that's going to be a pretty big deal with Windows Virtual Desktop.
Absolutely.
I'm interested in how that, along with Image Builder, with the two of those, you kind of got a good image management solution.
Exactly, and that's the dream, right? To have everything separated. So you've got separate profiles, separate core image, and separate applications. So it just makes that whole image management piece a whole lot easier. Last week, I did a presentation to a Citrix user group here in the UK, and it kind of got me thinking. People say sort of WVD is not really enterprise ready, and Citrix is better at doing the management stuff. But if you think about it, the stuff that you can do with WVD through Azure, as in all the automation and DevOps and stuff like that, I'm pretty sure if you did a lot of the work, you could get something which, from an image management point of view, is better than sort of updating images via Citrix. Do you guys agree with that, or what do you think?
Well, with Citrix, we are talking about things like machine creation service. Yeah. So basically, it's just swapping the disk and recreating that VM, right?
Yeah.
So I think right now what people are doing is or creating a new host pool and put in some new session host, or just removing the current session host and re-adding some new ones with new names, new numbers, etc. So in my opinion, I think if Microsoft is going to focus more on image management, so to find a way to just swap out that operating system disk and renew it with a new one, then it could be competitive against Citrix machine creation service.
Yeah, that reminds me of. Oh,
go
ahead. That reminds me of something that happened during Ignite this year. I sent a tweet out about it. So I was working on this course, and one of the problems I ran into is I wanted to go over how to update session hosts in a host pool. And I discovered that when you go in to add a new session host, you didn't have the option to switch to a different image. You could only use the original image. And so I had to go back and do a whole nother content, because the only workaround I could think of is using shared image gallery. And so instead of pointing to one specific image, you're pointing to an image definition that you can change in the background. So I spent a not insignificant amount of time doing that. And then I went to actually do the recording. And when I went to that page to add a session host, there's a drop down to change the image. And I'm like, okay, that's good.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
changed a few things in the portal at that moment. It was
Yeah.
the sizing, the prefix. I think you
Yep.
could also
Yep.
change, and another thing, I guess, that was suddenly available within the Azure portal to change. But
Yeah.
if you think about it, because so for your customers, how are you updating those session notes? Are you just creating new ones, or step by step removing a few and re-adding it with the same name, for example?
The suggestion I make is to create a new image. If possible, use the validation host pools. So if you're able to, I mean, that's what they're there for. They're really there for Microsoft's validation, but you can use them for your own as well, kind of a canary in a coal mine. So you can create a new image and then create your update your validation pool, and if everything goes right, then move that into production.
Yeah, but if you're going to move it to production, is it do you just recreate some new session host based on the new naming prefix, or something else, or removing the existing one and re-adding it with the same name?
I would add new ones and then kind of through attrition pull off the old ones.
Yeah.
You know, that way you have the, you know, if there's a problem, if you do run into an issue or you don't use a validation pool, you can watch what's going on with one or two new ones.
In that case, I'm really curious, because I saw a presentation last week from, I think, Tom Hickling about MSIX app attach, and for preparing your session hosts to use MSIX app attach, you must create a security group with your session host in it and give those computers access to your Azure files. So I'm really curious how that's going to work out, because if you add new session hosts, you must make sure that those are already joined to that group, and that group must be synced to Azure AD.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, I didn't catch that. Yeah. So they have to be in there and synchronized before they can.
And it's the same with the hybrid AD join. So that policy, it will take a few minutes, till like 15 minutes before that's set up and running. So in the whole hybrid physical virtual same management thing, well, I'm really curious how that's going to work out when they're releasing MSIX app attach the integration, and what they are going to do about changing or updating those session hosts.
They may have to be added in drain mode, maybe to allow things to synchronize.
Yeah.
Before
and then there must be a few checks before you can put those machines into production and let some users log into it. Yeah. Well, there's definitely going to be some very interesting stuff in the next coming, I think, weeks and months in the next year.
Yeah, and forever. This industry has been. I joke. I learned Windows Server 2000 back when it came out, and I'm still leveraging that knowledge today on Server 2019. But things I learned 6 months ago on Azure seem to be useless now. So we're close to it. I used to, and I still do this when I do a Google search for something. I'll set the time to go only a year back, because the odds are if it's over than a year, it's probably not relevant.
That's a good tip.
That was especially true when they made the switch from Classic to ARM, Azure ARM, because I would search for something and I would always get the Classic information.
Absolutely. Travis, I have 2 questions more for you. One is especially about the time. Time is running fast, and we have nearly reached the end of 2020. At the beginning of the year, we were talking about the year of VDI, or the year of Windows Virtual Desktop. What do you think about it?
I think COVID really accelerated that. I mean, a lot of people are now, we're scrambling, and I think it also shows a lot of. I saw a cartoon that the thing that drove organizational change most in 2020 was COVID. We can now, people who said we couldn't work remote are now seeing that you can work remote. And I don't think that's going to go back to normal. It may go back somewhat, but I think we're going to see a lot more. And organizations are going to look at how they can scale up rapidly and facilitate that securely. So I really think we're going to see more of it. Did that answer your question?
Absolutely. I
Okay.
just wanted to know. It's always interesting to see the feedback from the community and from speakers like you to see how do you see it from the field. Because I can definitely agree that due to the changes, due to COVID, a lot of companies need to adapt their work. And I think we all agree on that point. And what I definitely can say, it was definitely the year of Windows Virtual Desktop, because from our point of view in the small Luxembourg, but also from what I hear in the German user group or in all the other user groups, is that the interest is so high. We see that in the participation of people, the interest, the questions they ask. When I check your YouTube channel, the interest in your videos, especially, that's awesome. And I think the trend will be the same or even more in 2021. And we're really excited to see that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there's a lot more to come. It's for being a new product, they've seen so many changes for the better, and there's more to come. So
Yes,
it's going to be interesting.
Absolutely.
Which makes creating content a little bit, you have to be kind of on it.
I was gonna say, sort of, what's next for Travis? I mean, are you just going to continue as you are, or have you got bigger plans?
Yeah, I'm working on another course on cost management. So I've got that, but yeah, I think after this one, I may take a break from the courses, just keep the one that I have up to date, and maybe focus more on YouTube for a while.
So when you release a course on, for example, Udemy, can you update the content?
Yeah.
So you can just add new stuff to the same course.
Correct.
Ah, nice.
Yep.
Cool.
Just update the videos. Yeah.
Cool.
Last question for me. Where'd you get your t-shirt from?
Shirts by Shane. So there's a website. It's called Shirts by Shane. I don't know what the international, so he designs these, and then there's like a third-party printer, but all the profits from his shirt sales goes to Girls Who Code. So it's a nonprofit that he runs. So yeah.
Wow. Okay.
I ordered a couple of years. I used to get them from conferences.
Yeah.
That
pipeline's
dried up.
Perfect.
I keep thinking somebody needs to come up. Maybe there's one. Somebody needs to come up with like a sticker swap website, so you can like share the ones you have and then swap them with somebody else.
I think there is somebody who is collecting stickers from all those events, and he's putting in a box, and he's taking it with him to another event, so you can indeed swap stickers and goodies from different events. So
events aren't happening here anytime soon. So
and guys, I think you guys both missed it also, but the Christmas Windows XP sweaters were on sale, but they are all sold out. And it's the same. Those are also the profit of the selling of those shirts are also for Girls Who Code.
There must be millions of pounds of socks and cheap USB chargers and pens and stuff just stuck in everyone's cupboards, right?
Right.
Well, next year we will have some WVD Community t-shirts and goodies, so that will be okay.
Yeah.
Well, Travis, I think we are going to stop this podcast.
Yep. But first of all, I have one last question to you, Travis.
Sure.
How can people reach out to you if they have questions?
Yep.
Through my website. I've got a form on there. They can go through YouTube. I check the comments on that. I've got an about page with, it's got the form you can send them. But yeah, Ciraltos.com. Twitter, there's that. I'm constantly on that, so you can reach out to me at Ciraltos, the same handle.
Perfect.
We'll send out the links when I publish the podcast episode as well.
All right.
Well, thank you very much, Travis, for joining us today in our WVD Community podcast. And I'm looking forward to 2021 and some new content from you.
All right. I'll get on it.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you
All
very
right.
much.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.